My parents said I was too average to be worth celebrating. They bought my sister a car for finishing a course online. I got a mug that said try again. I didn't cry. I got creative. That's why the local news showed up to their house with. I moved to downtown St. Louis after college, where I work as a paralegal at a firm that specializes in labor law. It's not glamorous, but it's solid. I make enough to pay my bills, save a little, and treat myself to take out sushi once a week. My fiancé, Oliver, is an IT technician. We met at a trivia night. It's been 3 years, and I still like his laugh more than anything. Daphne's story? Well, she went to an art school in Chicago. Dropped out after 1 semester. Moved home. Dabbled in modeling. Spent 6 months healing in Oregon. Then she got really into digital branding and took a 6-week online course in visual design aesthetics or something like that. When she completed it, my parents threw her a party. I found out through Facebook. Clarice had posted a picture of Daphne in a sundress standing next to a brand new white Jeep Grand Cherokee with a big red bow on the hood. The caption read, "So proud of our girl for following her dreams and completing her design journey. Hashtag hard work pays off, hashtag support your kids, hashtag newcarwaddies." I stared at the photo for a full 2 minutes. It wasn't even the first time something like this happened. Daphne had always been rewarded for existing. Meanwhile, when I got promoted to senior paralegal the year before, my parents forgot to respond to the group text. I sent a photo of me and Oliver celebrating with champagne. My dad left it on read. My mom replied 3 days later with, "Oh, that's great. We knew you'd do well." Back to the Jeep. The day after the party, I went to visit them for Sunday dinner. I didn't say anything. Just smiled through the small talk. I brought salad, because that's what I always bring. After we'd finished eating and Daphne was gushing about her design clients, aka her friends who let her make Canva templates for their Etsy shops, my mom handed me a gift bag. No reason. Just said, "A little something for you too." I opened it. Inside was a chipped white mug. The kind you get from those last chance bins at Marshall's. In faded gold lettering, it said, "Try again." My dad chuckled and said, "Don't take it the wrong way, Liv. You've always been a trooper." I smiled. That kind of tight-lipped, robotic smile you give when your brain is screaming but your upbringing taught you not to make a scene. I drove home in silence. I didn't cry. Not even when I got home and Oliver asked how dinner went. I held up the mug and said, "They got me this." Then I poured wine into it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the years I kept quiet. All the birthdays I spent watching Daphne open bigger gifts than mine. All the times I was told to let it go or be the bigger person or not make it a competition. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to be heard. So, I wrote about it. Not a rant, not a rage-fueled takedown. Just the story. The mug. The Jeep. The history behind it all. I posted it on r/true off my chest. I changed the names. Left out identifying details. But it was honest. And it exploded. I didn't expect that. It felt like opening a window and suddenly realizing just how many people had been suffocating in the same way. My inbox filled up. People thanked me. Shared their own stories. Said I'd put into words what they'd never been able to say. BuzzFeed picked it up. Then a mid-size news blog in Chicago. Eventually, someone from KMOV, our local St. Louis news station, reached out. They asked if I'd be willing to do a segment for a series on family dynamics and emotional invisibility. I agreed. On one condition, anonymity. They blurred my face. Changed my voice. Filmed in my apartment. It aired on a Friday night at 6 o'clock. By Saturday morning, my phone was blowing up. Clarice called. I let it ring. Then she left a voicemail that started with, "Olivia, what have you done?" She wasn't concerned with the story. She was furious about being embarrassed. Said I'd dragged the family through the mud for no reason. Accused me of exaggerating. Gaslighting, even. That was the first domino. Because 3 days later, the news van showed up at their house again. But this time, it wasn't for a follow-up interview. It was for an investigation. The funny part is, I didn't even know what was happening until I saw a clip of it on the local station's Facebook page. The headline said, "Tax trouble for local businessmen linked to viral story." The video was grainy, taken from a distance, probably with a zoom lens. It showed a KMOV van parked in front of my parents' house. My mom stood in the doorway, talking to a reporter, her hand shielding her face from the camera. My dad wasn't visible, but the footage panned briefly to the white Jeep still sitting in the driveway. My heart stopped. Then my phone rang. Oliver's voice was calm. "You need to sit down." Apparently, the story had caught the attention of someone at the IRS. Or maybe someone in the subreddit worked for them, I don't know. Either way, once the mug and Jeep story went public, someone tipped off the news team that Martin Arlo, owner of Arlo and Sons Landscaping, had been listing unusually high business expenses for the past couple of years, specifically, expenses related to Daphne. Her car? Listed under marketing outreach. Her apartment in Clayton? Remote brand strategist housing. Her MacBook and high-end camera gear? Creative assets for digital expansion. They'd been writing off her life as a business investment. I wish I could say I was shocked. But I wasn't. My dad had always run his business like it was a garage sale, everything negotiable, everything done under the table when he could. He bragged about how he'd never paid full tax in his life at every Thanksgiving dinner like it was a badge of honor. I remember being 15 and asking if I could get paid for helping with yard work for his company over the summer. He told me, "It's all cash, Liv. Uncle Sam doesn't need to know." At the time, I thought it was cool. Now, I see it for what it was. It didn't take long for things to snowball. Within a week, the news story was being referenced by national finance blogs. Reddit had already connected the dots, of course. Internet sleuths figured out who we were. Someone found Daphne's Instagram and screenshot the Jeep with the bow. Someone else matched the mug to a discontinued design sold by a novelty shop in Kirkwood, Missouri. The anonymity I'd requested dissolved overnight. That week, my mom sent me 7 voicemails. Each one angrier than the last. "You had no right to air family business like that. Do you know what you've done to your father? Do you feel better now that everyone's looking at us like trash? You're jealous, Olivia. Admit it." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands would shake every time her name lit up my screen. Daphne was quieter. She sent me one message, just a question mark. Then nothing. Oliver kept me grounded through it all. He made sure I ate, kept me off Twitter, and held me at night when I felt like the entire world was sliding sideways. But even he couldn't believe how quickly it all spiraled. 3 weeks later, an official investigation was opened into Arlo and Sons Landscaping. The IRS was involved. Subpoenas were issued. My father went on local radio to claim it was a misunderstanding. Said the car wasn't actually a gift, it was a company loaner vehicle and that Daphne had recently joined the marketing team. Only problem? There were no tax forms. No payroll. No W-2s. Daphne had never been an employee. She never even had a business email account linked to the company. The more they dug, the worse it got. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Martin had fudged numbers. Just the first time it had caught fire. I sat on my couch one evening, watching it all unfold from a safe digital distance. The mug sat next to me, filled with cold tea. I still couldn't bring myself to throw it away. There was this strange satisfaction in knowing people were finally seeing the truth. But it wasn't vindictive. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Tired. I never meant for any of this to happen. All I wanted was to be acknowledged. Seen. But now the whole country saw us. Around that time, my cousin Noelle reached out. We hadn't spoken in years. She said, "I know what they did to you. I saw it even back then. I'm sorry I never said anything." That message? That one got me. I cried for the first time in weeks. Then came emails from people I'd never met, a teacher who said my post made her reevaluate how she talks to her students. A mother who realized she'd been doing the same thing to her eldest. A man who said he finally understood why his sister stopped talking to their parents. One woman wrote, "Thank you for putting into words the invisible kind of heartbreak, the kind that comes from being quietly overlooked your whole life." That was when I knew something bigger had happened here. A publisher emailed me. Said they were interested in developing a collection of essays based on my experience. A memoir. I nearly deleted the message, thinking it was spam. But it was real. A real editor, a real offer. I told Oliver over dinner and he laughed, not in a mean way, but in that amazed, proud way that makes your heart go soft. You wrote your way into the truth, he said. Meanwhile, my parents' world was collapsing inward. The business was audited. My father owed tens of thousands in back taxes. The Jeep was seized. Daphne moved back home quietly and took down all her social media. Clarice stopped posting inspirational quotes and family photos and went dark online. From what I've heard through the grapevine, mostly from Aunt Sharon, they're calling me vindictive, ungrateful, and mentally unstable. The irony, of course, is that I didn't reveal anything that wasn't already happening. They did all of it. I just refused to stay silent. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one. I wasn't the one who let it slide. I finally stopped being the bigger person. And for what it's worth, I've slept better every night since. It's strange, the things you notice when your family stops pretending to like you. My mother used to send a cheery, "Hope you're having a good week," text every Wednesday. Sometimes with a recipe link. Other times with a forwarded chain prayer about angels or motherhood or something equally corny. Those stopped cold after the IRS showed up. It had been over 2 months since I heard her voice outside a voicemail. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Daphne didn't say much either. But in her case, that didn't surprise me. She'd always existed in a bubble. My parents made sure of that. Daphne didn't really do confrontation, she either avoided or rewrote reality in her favor. I think it made her feel safer. But one night, she finally did reach out. It was a Thursday, around 10:45 p.m. I was in bed with Oliver, half watching reruns of Frasier, when my phone buzzed. "Daphne, can we talk?" "Not about mom and dad. Just us." I stared at the message for a long time. Oliver read it over my shoulder and said, "You don't have to answer that tonight. Or ever." But I did. I told her we could meet for coffee the following week, in a neutral place, somewhere that didn't carry the weight of shared memories. We picked a quiet cafe in University City that was halfway between us and had enough background noise to cushion awkwardness. When she walked in, she looked smaller somehow. Not physically, Daphne was still tall and radiant in that effortless way, but she didn't have that same sparkle. Her makeup was subdued. No false lashes. Hair in a low ponytail. She looked like someone who hadn't been adored in a while. She sat across from me, wrapped her hands around her coffee like it was a lifeline, and said the most unexpected thing. "I read every comment." I blinked. "What?" "On the Reddit post." "And the article?" "The one where they blurred your face?" "I knew it was you right away. I knew from the way you wrote about the mug." She looked up at me then. Her eyes were shiny, but she didn't cry. "Neither did I didn't know how bad it was," she said quietly. "I thought you just didn't care. That you were okay with it. You always seemed like you didn't need anyone." I exhaled, slowly. I didn't not need anyone, Daph. I just learned early on that asking got me less, not more. She nodded, her throat working. We didn't talk for very long. Maybe 30 minutes. She apologized, not just for the mug incident, but for years of letting me fade into the background while she soaked up the spotlight. She admitted that our parents made it easy for her to stay oblivious. "They never made me share the stage," she said. "Because they didn't think you belonged on it." It wasn't said with malice. It was said with quiet horror. Like she was realizing it all at once. She asked me if I hated her. I told her I didn't. And I meant it. It was never about Daphne. It was about being treated like a footnote in my own life. After the coffee, we kept in touch. Not daily, not even weekly. But she sent a couple of articles my way, and asked how Oliver was doing. Said she was thinking about going back to school, real school this time. Community college, maybe something in early childhood education. I encouraged her. There's still distance between us. That kind of damage doesn't disappear after one coffee and an apology. But I appreciate the attempt. That counts for more than she probably knows. Things with my parents, though, are a whole other story. They're still in denial. Last I heard, Martin had hired a lawyer from some firm in Clayton who specializes in creative accounting issues. Clarice went back to work part-time at a local bridal boutique to help with legal fees, though she tells people it's just for fun. My aunt said Clarice told their church prayer group that I was emotionally troubled and had been manipulated by internet fame. She claimed I twisted things to make them look bad. I didn't respond to that. I didn't even feel the usual sting. That's how I knew I was starting to heal. The strangest consequence of all this, though? Strangers know me now. Not in a fame kind of way, no one stops me on the street, but I'll get emails, messages, even letters. People send letters to my P.O. box. Some are from people in their 40s or 50s who say they never confronted their own parents. Others are young adults who tell me they finally decided to go no contact after reading my story. One woman sent me a photograph of the mug her parents gave her on her 30th birthday. It said, "At least you tried." She said she wept when she read about mine. It's eerie, this quiet undercurrent of shared grief. I've started working on the book. It's harder than I thought it would be. Some days, I sit at the keyboard and just stare. Other days, I'll write 10 pages in a single sitting, crying over things I didn't know I still carried. The writing helps. So does therapy. So does Oliver. He's been my constant through all of this. A soft place to fall. He even started using the try again mug for his morning coffee. Says it reminds him to keep pushing. I laugh every time I see it. Sometimes irony is healing. The fallout from the mug and the Jeep, the IRS investigation, and the viral Reddit post eventually settled into a new, strange normal. It didn't explode forever, things like this never do. But the impact lingered. The kind of thing that gets whispered about at family weddings and makes neighbors pause mid-wave when they see you unloading groceries. A few more months passed. The IRS finalized their investigation. My father took a plea deal, 3 years of supervised probation, repayment of all back taxes, and a formal dissolution of Arlo and Sons Landscaping. The business he'd spent 22 years building vanished, just like that. They sold the work truck, the mowers, even the company trailer with the cheesy "You grow it, we mow it" decal I'd helped him stencil on one summer when I was 15. My mother took down her Facebook. My father disappeared from LinkedIn. They went from smug to silent, from gloating about Daphne's brand to avoiding any mention of either of us altogether. And me? I was thriving. I signed the book deal. I didn't want it to be a revenge memoir. That would have been too easy. Too cheap. Instead, I wrote about identity, emotional neglect, the invisible weight of being the responsible one. I included stories from my childhood that still lived in the corners of my mind, like how, when Daphne won her 5th grade spelling bee, they took her to Olive Garden, and when I got into the National Honor Society, I was told that's what we expect from you. My editor said the first draft made her cry twice and laugh once, at the part where I described my dad watching Shark Tank like it was a religious experience. That felt right. The book's title? Try Again, The Unseen Child's Guide to Becoming Visible. It went into early pre-sales, and then, somehow, Oprah's team reached out. Yes, that Oprah. Her book club didn't select it, but a producer from her network asked to feature me in a segment about generational trauma and family dynamics. I almost fainted when I got the call. Oliver made me practice answering the phone with "This is Olivia speaking" because I kept blurting "oh my god" every time it rang. The episode aired in spring. I wore a navy blue dress and nude heels. I looked polished and calm, even though my hands were shaking under the table. They played a clip of the news story, the mug, the Jeep. Then they cut to me talking about how it felt to grow up being the default setting in your own home. It was tasteful. Honest. Sharp without being cruel. The revenge wasn't in tearing them down, it was in telling the truth so loudly and so publicly that they couldn't pretend anymore. And it paid off. That summer, I was invited to give a keynote at a women's empowerment conference in Chicago. A woman came up to me afterward, in her 60s, and hugged me. She whispered in my ear, "I was Daphne. I wish I'd noticed my sister sooner." The royalties started coming in. Not millions, but enough to pay off my student loans. Enough to finally replace my beat-up Corolla with a hybrid SUV. Enough to put a down payment on a new house in Tower Grove, a little 3-bedroom with old hardwood floors and ivy creeping up the back brick wall. We hosted our engagement party there. Just a small one, 20 people, mostly friends and some coworkers. Not a single person from my family. It didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. My dad sent a card. No return address. Inside was a check for $500 and a short note, "I'm sorry for everything. We were wrong. I didn't cash the check." Instead, I framed the note and hung it in my office next to the bronzed mug. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder that even the people who once made you feel small might eventually realize they were the ones shrinking themselves. Daphne came by a few weeks later. She brought a tray of lemon bars she made from scratch. Said she'd started taking baking classes and was thinking about opening a little cafe someday. Not a dream job, she said with a shy smile, but maybe a real one this time. I helped her unpack the lemon bars and watched her carefully, wondering if it was okay to trust the version of her that stood in front of me now. No flash. No filters. Just my sister, trying. "Liv," she said before leaving, "I'm proud of you. Even if Mom and Dad never say it, I am." I believed her. A few weeks later, the local paper ran a follow-up article, "From Mud to Memoir, St. Charles Woman Turns Family Scandal into National Conversation." It was well written. Respectful. They reached out for a quote and I gave them one: "Some families build each other up. Some build illusions. Mine taught me how to find my voice when no one else would listen. And I'm grateful. Because now the world hears me. I've stopped waiting for apologies that'll never come. I've stopped measuring my worth in how visible I am to people who chose not to see me. I'm not the average daughter anymore. I'm the one who told the story. And that, I've learned, is more powerful than any Jeep with a bow on top."